на веснянку збиралося збірня, щоб на нашу на веснянку збиралося збірня.
The voices of Ukraine. Joseph Lindsley, editor of Ukrainian Freedom News, joins us now. Joseph, what are we listening to?
Bob, good afternoon. Well, as I was running through Lviv at midday today, beautiful spring day, about 60 degrees, in one of the old squares of the old city, there was a group of people singing and celebrating. It's the Easter season here. And so this is a group of young women singing a traditional song about Vesna, about spring. And children are dancing, wearing their traditional embroidered clothes. There are giant wooden Easter eggs. And it's just a beautiful energy to see. At the end of this song, one of the young women, she cries out, Christos voskres, which means Christ is risen. And then the people reply, voistinu voskres, he's risen indeed. And those words, you hear it everywhere you go in Lviv this week. Old friends greeting each other, strangers saying hello in the shops and the restaurants. And so there is this spirit of, even of some celebration and exuberance here, and some kind of confidence. And, in some sense, it feels like a very loose sense, like the people of Pompeii waiting for Vesuvius to blow, because they're, for example, last night through the middle of the night, there were two sets of air alarms, one at midnight and one at 3:30. This is highly unusual, and we've had nothing like this in a long time. And so people were paying close attention. There were reports of these Iranian suicide drones traveling throughout the country. These drones are just a couple feet high, but they have the footprint of a small car, and so they can be hard to detect. And they were moving all around, even here into the west of Ukraine. In the end, it seems that there were a total of 10 of these Iranian drones, and Ukrainian air defense shot down 8 of them. Right before that happened, at about 11 o'clock last night, a Russian jet dropped a bomb on a Russian city. It was an accident, and it's a Russian city of Belgorod, not far from Kharkiv. Perhaps that was the direction they were intending to travel, but the bomb fell on the Russian city of Belgorod. And some news reports indicate that people in that city have been living in fear of attacks. But the fact is, Ukraine has not been attacking these Russian cities, and so far the biggest attack comes from their own people in a friendly fire. Well, I can't even want to call it friendly fire, but in an accident. And then as we look at this, what was happening with the drones last night, this has been increasing, and there's something new happening. And it seems that the Russians, at an increasing rate, are testing the Ukrainian air defense. And there's a tactic known as suppression of enemy air defense. And that seems to be, when I talk to people, that seems to be exactly what's happening now. And meanwhile, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has announced that the Ukrainian spring offensive has begun. We don't quite know what that means, but they're now willing to say publicly that they have begun some kind of spring offensive.
Joseph, those drones, are they large enough to trigger the air raid sirens? And when you're out jogging, as you tell us you do often, are you always looking up to the skies, worried about that?
When I am in Kharkiv, for example, which is 30 miles from Russia, even when there's no alarm, it's so close to Russia, missiles or drones could very easily show up unannounced with no prior warning. The alarms are triggered. They're more easily triggered when there's fighter jet activity, and that happens anytime there's any Russian training flights. For example, there's a nationwide air alarm automatically. But yes, the drones are harder to detect. Ukrainians are constantly refining their system to improve their detection capabilities. And even, most of these drones that have come into Ukrainian territory are shot down before they hit any of their intended targets. And so Ukrainians are pretty successful at it. But I think the thinking is that the goal of these drones is not the same as a goal would be for a missile. It's not to destroy something. It's to test and to weaken the system.
And I'm reading a story this morning. It's just heartbreaking, but it speaks to the courage and the spirit of the Ukrainian people. A dancer with the Odessa Opera was killed while fighting on the front line. He's a 31-year-old, and I guess that when the war started, he signed up immediately to help and left the ballet. What do you know about this story, Joseph?
I don't know about this particular story, but it's common, unfortunately, and especially around Bakhmut, where the Ukrainians are holding on to the western edge of the city. The Russians are making, building by building gains there, and actually the Russians have increased their artillery fire the past weeks, and so the toll for Ukraine is quite large. And you have many Ukrainian artists, such as this ballet dancer. Yesterday here in Lviv, there was a beloved musician and composer, Serhiy Artemov. He signed up, just like that ballet dancer. He signed up to fight in the first days of the war, and he was killed in the fighting in Bakhmut. And so you're losing, Ukraine's creative class. You're losing the young corruption fighters. These are the people that ran to defend their country and a sense of freedom. A friend of mine who's a jazz trumpet player wrote these words about Serhiy, who died in Bakhmut. He said, "Until recently, I dreamed of playing with Serhiy some new music after the war, how this war will make us rethink art, how we will celebrate victory. Today, I learned that the Russians killed him. I will never forgive the Russians and those who came here armed, and also those who now support this evil with their silence." And it's, and then there was yet another Ukrainian soldier who has a popular Twitter account writing about the situation in Bakhmut, and he says, "I would like to tell you about the battle near Bakhmut, how we held the Bakhmut-Lysychansk highway, but that will be later, and I don't know if it will happen at all," meaning he doesn't know if he'll survive to tell that story. So for now, read this and imagine what happened there. And he had a photograph of his bloody hands, and he writes, "Yesterday you were laughing at his jokes, and tomorrow you will see him dying. Your best friend will go missing, and you won't know what happened to him. Your hands will be bloody, and your eyes will be empty. Minutes will pass like hours."
Well, let me share an email from a listener with you here now, Joseph, to kind of bring the mood a little bit back on an upbeat. This is from Tim in Berwyn. "Good morning, Bob and morning crew. I listen to your show start to finish every day as I drive a semi to and from our surrounding states every day. I, like so many others, enjoy your daily visits with Joseph Lindsley. I think he accurately shares what is really going on in Ukraine beyond the Russian propaganda, often saturating news reports and social media. I've heard you promoting the cruise you and Marianne are going on, so I was thinking what a generous offer it would be if the organizer, or WGN, would extend an all-expense-paid trip with you, Marianne, and WGN listeners for Joseph as a thanks for putting a face to the war in Ukraine and to give him a temporary break from the ongoing conflict. If you could sway Joseph to step away from the war for a bit, I think he would really appreciate it." And you know what? I mean, I'm writing back to Tim and telling him that's a lovely thought, but I don't think you're quite ready to leave your adopted countrymen in Ukraine, are you, Joseph?
No, not yet. But I love Israel, and that would be great in the time of victory. But for now, it's the time to stay here. And I think, we could very well. There's a sense that there could be some good news coming on the way. I mean, it's taking a lot of effort for this spring offensive. But yes, I'll stick to the post here. But I appreciate those ideas. And speaking of semi truck drivers, that's been that's an untold story of this war. But the people that through the nights have been keeping the commerce going, keeping supplies going, driving the tractor trailers. And I've seen a glimpse of that as I've traveled the country. You stop at a gas station somewhere in the middle of the country and they stay open even when there's curfew, and it's totally dark. And you go inside and there's women there that are making meals by candlelight for the truck drivers. And so the truck drivers have been an untold story of keeping Ukraine strong and keeping the war effort supplied.
There you go, Tim from Berwyn. Joseph, we hope, if not on a cruise, we hope to see you back here one day sooner rather than later. Be well, and we'll talk Monday.
Thank you, Bob. Until Monday.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important, that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Ебать.